It was a cold November afternoon in Detroit. The gray clouds hung low in the sky, and a biting wind whipped through the city streets. Jamal Anderson, a 13-year-old boy with a wiry frame and a wide, curious gaze, was on his way home from school. His backpack hung loosely over one shoulder as he whistled a tune to himself, the rhythm of his footsteps echoing on the pavement. The towering Jefferson Bridge loomed ahead, a familiar shortcut he often took despite his mother's warnings to avoid it after dark. As Jamal reached the bridge, something caught his eye. A figure standing at the edge of the railing, just a step away from plunging into the icy waters below. Jamal froze for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. The figure was a young man, no older than 27, dressed sharply in a navy blue suit. His posture was rigid, his hands gripping the rail tightly as he stared down at the swirling river. Without thinking, Jamal ran toward the man, his sneakers scuffing against the concrete. "Hey, hey, mister," he shouted, his voice piercing through the sound of the wind. The man didn't turn. Jamal reached him and grabbed the sleeve of his suit jacket with both hands, tugging with all his might. "Oh, no, no, no! You can't do this!" Jamal cried. "Step back! It's dangerous!" The man jerked his arm, trying to pull away, but Jamal held on tightly. His small hands trembled, but his determination was unshakable. "Let go, kid," the man said through gritted teeth, his voice low and hollow. "You don't understand. This is the only way." "No, it's not!" Jamal yelled, his voice breaking. "Whatever it is, it can't be worse than dying. Please, just step back and talk to me." The man hesitated, glancing down at the boy's earnest face. Jamal's dark brown eyes were wide with fear, but there was something else there too: hope. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the man stepped down from the railing. Jamal exhaled a shaky breath of relief and guided him to a nearby bench. "Sit!" Jamal commanded, his voice firm despite the adrenaline surging through him. The man sank onto the bench, his head dropping into his hands. His shoulders shook, and Jamal realized he was crying. Awkwardly, Jamal sat beside him, unsure of what to do. "What's your name?" Jamal asked after a moment, his tone gentler now. The man sniffed and wiped at his eyes with the back of his hand. "Andrew," he said. "Andrew Cole." "Well, Mr. Andrew," Jamal said, "what were you doing up there? What's so bad that you'd think about, you know?" Andrew let out a bitter laugh. "You wouldn't understand, kid." "Try me," Jamal said, crossing his arms. "I'm smarter than I look." Andrew hesitated, then sighed deeply. "I own a company, or I used to anyway. It's on the brink of collapse. I made some bad decisions, took on a loan I couldn't pay back. Now I'm drowning in debt, and hundreds of people are going to lose their jobs because of me. I thought, maybe if I was gone, the insurance money would help cover the losses." Jamal frowned. "You really think that's the answer? What about your family? Your friends? You think they'd be okay with losing you just like that?" Andrew shook his head. "I don't have anyone left. My parents passed away years ago, and I don't have siblings. I was too busy building the company to make any friends." Jamal's expression softened. "That's rough, but giving up won't fix it. Look, I don't know much about running a business, but I know about not giving up. My mom says life's like basketball. You miss every shot you don't take. So maybe you're down right now, but you can get back up." Andrew stared at the boy, a flicker of something, hope, lighting in his pale blue eyes. "How'd you get so wise, kid?" Jamal shrugged. "I just listened to my mom. She's pretty smart." Andrew managed a small smile, the first one Jamal had seen. "What's your name, kid?" "Jamal," he said proudly. "Jamal Anderson." "Well, Jamal," Andrew said, "thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown up." Jamal grinned. "No problem. Just promise me you won't come back to this bridge for the wrong reasons, okay?" Andrew nodded solemnly. "I promise." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Andrew and Jamal parted ways. Jamal didn't know it yet, But that moment, his small act of courage, would change both their lives forever. 2 weeks had passed since the fateful encounter on the Jefferson Bridge, but for Andrew Cole, it felt like a lifetime. The memory of Jamal's voice, clear and unyielding, echoed in his mind. "Just promise me you won't come back to this bridge for the wrong reasons." It was a promise he intended to keep. Andrew sat in his sparsely decorated apartment, a pile of unopened letters scattered on the kitchen table. Bills, demands, legal notices, all stark reminders of the colossal mess his life had become. His once thriving tech startup, Vanguard Systems, was now teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. The weight of failure pressed heavily on his chest, but every time despair threatened to consume him, he thought of Jamal. That boy's unwavering determination had planted a seed of hope in Andrew's heart. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make him get out of bed each morning and try again. On the other side of town, Jamal was busy with his daily routine. School had its usual challenges: math quizzes, gym class, and the ever-present group of kids who teased him about his old sneakers. But none of that bothered him. What stayed on his mind was Andrew. "I wonder if he's okay," Jamal muttered to himself as he walked home from school. The memory of Andrew's tear-streaked face haunted him. Jamal had never seen a grown man look so lost. He wished there was more he could do. "Jamal!" called a familiar voice. It was his mother, standing on their small front porch, waving him inside. "Dinner's ready, baby." Jamal jogged up the steps, his backpack bouncing against his back. "Coming, Ma!" Inside, the smell of fried chicken and collard greens filled the air. Jamal's mother, Carla, was a single parent who worked 2 jobs to keep their small family afloat. Despite the hardships, she always found time to make home-cooked meals and share words of wisdom. As they sat down to eat, Jamal hesitated before speaking. "Ma, what would you do if someone needed help but didn't know how to ask for it?" Carla looked up, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Well, honey, sometimes people don't know they need help until someone offers it. If you see a chance to do good, take it. Even a little kindness can go a long way." Jamal nodded, her words reinforcing what he already felt deep inside. The next morning, Andrew stared at his laptop, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. His company's financials were bleak, but he forced himself to face the numbers. He combed through every expense, every contract, every mistake he'd made. It was grueling work, but he refused to stop. By late afternoon, his head was pounding, and frustration threatened to boil over. That's when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen to see an unknown number. Hesitating for a moment, he answered. "Hello? Mr. Andrew?" "It's Jamal," came the familiar voice. Andrew's lips curled into a small smile. "Jamal? How did you get my number?" "I may have borrowed a phone book," Jamal admitted sheepishly. "I wanted to see how you're doing." Andrew leaned back in his chair, surprised by the boy's persistence. "I'm surviving, kid. Thanks to you, I've been trying to figure things out." "That's good," Jamal said, his voice brightening. "But surviving's not enough. You've got to fight. What's your plan?" Andrew chuckled, partly amused and partly amazed at Jamal's boldness. "I don't know yet. I'm going over the numbers, trying to see where I went wrong." "Numbers are cool, but you also need a team," Jamal said matter-of-factly. "You can't do this alone, Mr. Andrew." Andrew was stunned into silence. For a 13-year-old, Jamal had a knack for cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of the matter. "You're right," Andrew admitted, "but I don't know who to turn to. Most of my employees have already left, and I don't have the money to hire anyone new." "Then start with the people who stayed," Jamal said simply. "Maybe they believe in you more than you think." Andrew's mind raced. There were still a handful of employees who hadn't jumped ship, including his assistant Rachel and the lead software engineer Marco. They had stuck by him, even when things looked bleak. Perhaps Jamal was right. Maybe they saw something in him that he couldn't see in himself. "Okay, Jamal," Andrew said, his voice steadier now. "I'll reach out to them, but only if you promise to keep being my unofficial life coach." Jamal laughed. "Deal. And if you ever feel like giving up again, call me, okay?" Andrew's throat tightened with emotion. "Thanks, kid. I mean it." Over the next few days, Andrew began reaching out to his remaining team members. To his surprise, Rachel and Marco were not only willing to help, but eager to brainstorm solutions. They spent hours in conference calls, strategizing ways to cut costs, renegotiate contracts, and pivot the company's focus. It wasn't easy, but for the first time in months, Andrew felt like he had a fighting chance. Meanwhile, Jamal continued to check in, his optimism becoming a lifeline for Andrew. The boy's unwavering belief in him reminded Andrew of something he had lost long ago: faith in himself. One evening, as Andrew sat in his apartment, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was Rachel. "Andrew, you're not going to believe this," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "I just got off the phone with a potential investor. They're interested in hearing about our plans for a relaunch." Andrew's heart raced. "Are you serious? Who is it?" "An old client of ours, Mr. Patel. He says he always admired your vision and wants to give you a chance to turn things around." Andrew leaned back, his mind reeling. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. As he hung up the phone, Andrew whispered to himself, "Thank you, Jamal." The boy's courage had sparked something in him, a determination to fight, to rebuild, and to prove that even in the darkest moments, there was still hope. Andrew stood outside Patel Investments, staring up at the modern glass facade of the building. The early morning sun glinted off the windows, making the structure seem larger than life. Clutching a slim folder containing his revised business proposal, Andrew felt a surge of nerves tighten in his chest. This was the chance he had been working toward for weeks, the opportunity to pull Vanguard Systems back from the brink of ruin. "Just breathe," he muttered to himself. "You've got this." But in the back of his mind, he couldn't help but hear Jamal's voice. "You've got to fight, Mr. Andrew. You can't give up now." With renewed resolve, Andrew walked through the revolving doors. Inside, the receptionist greeted him politely and directed him to a conference room on the top floor. As Andrew ascended in the elevator, his mind raced with thoughts of everything that had brought him to this moment: the failure, the debt, the night on the bridge, and the unexpected wisdom of a 13-year-old boy. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Andrew stepped out into a sleek, tastefully decorated office. Mr. Patel, a sharp-eyed man in his late 50s, rose from behind a mahogany desk and extended his hand. "Mr. Cole," Patel said warmly, "it's good to see you again." "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me," Andrew replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Let's get straight to it," Patel said, motioning for Andrew to sit. "I've reviewed your initial materials, but I want to hear your vision directly from you." Andrew nodded, opening his folder and placing a few charts and graphs on the table. His voice steady, he began explaining his plan: a pivot toward cybersecurity services, leveraging Vanguard Systems' existing expertise in data encryption. He laid out the potential market, the revenue projections, and the steps they'd take to rebuild the brand's credibility. As he spoke, Patel listened intently, occasionally nodding or jotting down notes. By the time Andrew finished, nearly an hour had passed. Patel leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against his desk. "I must say, Mr. Cole, this is a compelling plan. But you understand the risk, don't you? You're asking for significant investment in a company that's barely surviving." "I understand," Andrew said, meeting Patel's gaze. "But I also know this. Vanguard Systems was built on innovation and resilience. We've stumbled, but we're not out. This isn't just about saving a company. It's about protecting the data and privacy of businesses everywhere. That's a mission worth fighting for. Patel's lips curled into a small smile. You've got passion, I'll give you that. Let me discuss this with my team, and we'll get back to you within the week. Andrew stood and extended his hand. Thank you, Mr. Patel. I appreciate your time. As he left the office, Andrew felt a mix of relief and anticipation. The hard part wasn't over, but he had taken the first step toward redemption. And that evening, Andrew called Jamal. Hey, Mr. Andrew. Jamal's voice was cheerful. How'd the meeting go? It went well, Andrew said, smiling despite himself. They're considering the investment. That's awesome, Jamal exclaimed. See, I told you you'd figure it out. Andrew laughed softly. You're something else, Jamal. You know that? Just speaking the truth, Jamal said, clearly proud of himself. What's next? I keep working, Andrew said. No matter what, and I owe that mindset to you. Nah, Jamal said quickly. You had it in you the whole time. You just needed a little push. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. Andrew threw himself into refining his plans, rallying his remaining team, and preparing for the possibility that Patel might say yes or no. The days were long and exhausting, but for the first time in months, Andrew felt alive. Meanwhile, Jamal kept up with his schoolwork, though he couldn't resist bragging to his friends about helping a big-time businessman. His mother noticed his extra enthusiasm and teased him about his secret project, but Jamal kept the details to himself. One afternoon, Andrew's phone buzzed with a call from Patel Investments. He answered quickly, his heart pounding. Mr. Cole, Patel's voice came through. After much discussion, we've decided to invest in Vanguard Systems. We believe in your vision, and we're willing to help you see it through. Andrew was speechless for a moment. Thank you, Mr. Patel. I won't let you down. I trust you won't, Patel replied. We'll arrange the details and get started immediately. As the call ended, Andrew sat back in his chair, a wave of relief washing over him. For the first time in months, he felt like he could breathe again. That evening, Andrew called Jamal with the news. They said yes, Andrew said, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. Let's go, Jamal shouted on the other end. I knew you could do it, Mr. Andrew? Andrew chuckled. I couldn't have done it without you, Jamal. You reminded me why I started this company in the first place. So what's the plan now? Jamal asked. The plan, Andrew said, is to rebuild, step by step, day by day. And one day, when all this is behind me, I'm going to make sure you know just how much you've done for me. Jamal grinned, though Andrew couldn't see it. You don't owe me anything, Mr. Andrew. Just keep being awesome. I'll do my best, Andrew promised. As he hung up the phone, Andrew couldn't help but marvel at how far he'd come in such a short time. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he felt ready to face it head-on. And he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he wouldn't be facing them alone. The first day of Vanguard Systems' relaunch was a whirlwind of organized chaos. Andrew stood at the front of the small office space, a team of 15 loyal employees gathered around him. They were the ones who had stayed through the worst, weathering layoffs, unpaid months, and uncertainty. Andrew knew he owed them more than just a paycheck. He owed them a second chance. Today marks the beginning of something new, Andrew began, his voice steady but emotional. We've all been through tough times, but we're still here, and that means something. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I can promise this. We're going to rebuild this company together. Let's show the world what Vanguard Systems is made of. The room erupted into applause. For the first time in months, there was hope in their eyes. Meanwhile, Jamal was having a very different kind of day. School had been particularly exhausting, with back-to-back tests and a long lecture on algebra that made his head spin. But as he sat at the kitchen table doing his homework, his thoughts kept drifting to Andrew. He wondered what the office looked like, what Andrew's employees were like, and how it felt to lead a team of adults. Jamal had no doubt that Andrew would succeed. He just wished he could be there to see it. "Jamal, focus," his mother said from across the room where she was folding laundry. "That homework isn't going to finish itself." "Sorry, Ma," Jamal said, shaking his head and returning to his math problems. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was a part of something bigger than himself. That's you guys at Vanguard Systems. The team dived headfirst into their new focus: cybersecurity. Andrew had always believed that data protection would be the future, and now he was determined to make Vanguard a leader in the field. They began by offering affordable security solutions to small businesses, a market often overlooked by larger firms. Andrew leaned heavily on his team. Rachel, his assistant, handled the administrative chaos with precision, while Marco, the lead engineer, worked tirelessly on developing a new software platform. The energy in the office was electric. Every small victory, from signing a new client to fixing a stubborn bug, felt monumental. But the pressure was immense. Late nights and long weekends became the norm, and Andrew often found himself questioning if he had enough strength to see it through. Whenever doubt crept in, he thought of Jamal's words, "You've got to fight." One evening, after another grueling day at the office, Andrew decided to call Jamal. "Hey, Mr. Andrew," Jamal answered, his voice as cheerful as ever. "How's it going?" "It's exhausting," Andrew admitted, letting out a weary laugh. "But we're making progress. Signed 3 new clients this week." "That's awesome," Jamal said. "See? Told you you could do it." Andrew smiled, grateful for the boy's unwavering confidence. "What about you? How's school?" "Boring as usual," Jamal said with a dramatic sigh. "But I'm trying to stay on top of it. My mom would kill me if I didn't." Andrew chuckled. "Smart woman. You're lucky to have her." "I know," Jamal said, his voice softening. "She's the best." There was a pause before Jamal spoke again. "Hey, Mr. Andrew, when you're not so busy, do you think I could visit your office someday? I'd love to see what you're working on." Andrew's chest tightened at the request. Jamal's sincerity was disarming. "You know what, Jamal? That's a great idea. Once things settle down, you're coming for a visit. It's the least I can do." Jamal's grin was almost audible. "Deal." The weeks that followed were a blur of hard work and incremental progress. Slowly but surely, Vanguard Systems began to regain its footing. The team landed a few high-profile clients, and word of their innovative approach to cybersecurity started to spread. One evening, Andrew gathered his employees for a celebratory pizza night in the office. The mood was light, and laughter filled the air as they recounted the ups and downs of their journey. "To Vanguard Systems," Marco toasted, raising his soda can. "To second chances," Andrew added, lifting his own. The room erupted in cheers, and for the first time in a long time, Andrew felt truly proud of what they were building. That same evening, Jamal was sitting on his front porch, staring up at the stars. His mother joined him, a cup of tea in her hand. "You've been quiet tonight," she said, taking a seat beside him. "What's on your mind?" Jamal hesitated, then spoke. "I've been thinking about Mr. Andrew. He's working so hard to fix his company. It's like, I want to help him, but I don't know how." Carla smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "You've already helped him more than you know, baby. Sometimes just believing in someone can make all the difference." Jamal nodded, her words sinking in. "Yeah, I guess you're right. You're a good kid, Jamal," Carla said, pulling him into a side hug. "And I'm proud of you." As winter gave way to spring, Both Andrew and Jamal found themselves on paths of growth and self-discovery. For Andrew, it was about reclaiming his life and proving to himself and the world that he was capable of greatness. For Jamal, it was about understanding the power of kindness and the ripple effect it could have on others. Neither of them realized it yet, but their bond was becoming the foundation of something extraordinary, a partnership that would change both their lives forever. 3 months after their first phone call, Andrew Cole stood outside Jamal's modest brick home. His sleek black sedan, a rental he could finally afford again, gleamed under the mid-morning sun. Dressed casually in jeans and a blazer, Andrew felt a twinge of nervousness. It wasn't a business meeting or a presentation, but somehow meeting Jamal's family felt just as important. He knocked on the door, and it swung open almost immediately. Jamal stood there, beaming, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Mr. Andrew," he exclaimed, his excitement palpable. "You're really here?" Andrew grinned. "Of course I am. You've been asking about my office for weeks. I figured it's time you see what we've been working on." "Jamal!" called a voice from inside. Carla, Jamal's mother, appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she took in Andrew's appearance. "And who's this?" "Ma, this is Mr. Andrew, the guy I told you about," Jamal said quickly. "He's the one with the company." Carla's expression softened, though there was still a hint of suspicion. "Ah, so you're the one Jamal's been going on about. I hope you're not here to put ideas in my boy's head about quitting school for some tech dream." Andrew chuckled, extending his hand. "Not at all, Ms. Anderson. I just wanted to thank Jamal for everything he's done. He's been a big inspiration to me." Carla studied him for a moment before shaking his hand. "Well, if Jamal trusts you, I suppose I can too. Just make sure he's back by dinner." "Of course," Andrew promised. "I'll take good care of him." The drive to Vanguard Systems' new office was filled with animated chatter. Jamal peppered Andrew with questions about the business, the employees, and the technology they worked on. Andrew answered each one with a mix of amusement and pride, impressed by Jamal's genuine curiosity. When they arrived, Jamal's eyes widened at the sight of the sleek office building. It wasn't a skyscraper, but it was a significant upgrade from the cramped, temporary workspace Andrew's team had been using just months earlier. "Whoa," Jamal said as they stepped inside. "This place is cool." "It's a work in progress," Andrew said modestly, leading Jamal to the main workspace. Rows of desks were filled with employees typing furiously on keyboards or huddled in small groups discussing projects. The atmosphere buzzed with energy. "This is where the magic happens," Andrew said, gesturing around the room. Jamal's eyes darted from the large monitors displaying lines of code to the whiteboards covered in diagrams and notes. "What kind of magic?" he asked. "Cybersecurity magic," Andrew said with a grin. "We help businesses protect their data from hackers and cyber attacks. It's like being digital bodyguards." "Cool," Jamal said, clearly impressed. Andrew introduced him to a few team members, including Rachel and Marco, who greeted him warmly. They were all curious about the young boy who had played such a pivotal role in Andrew's journey. "Is it true you saved Andrew on a bridge?" Marco asked, his tone half joking. Jamal shrugged. "I just told him he couldn't give up, that's all." "Well, we're glad you did," Rachel said. "He's been working non-stop to turn things around here. You should be proud of him." Jamal beamed, feeling a swell of pride himself. After the tour, Andrew and Jamal sat in the small break room with sandwiches and sodas. Andrew could see the wheels turning in Jamal's head as he looked around the room. "What's on your mind?" Andrew asked. "I was just thinking," Jamal said slowly, "about how cool it is that you didn't give up. You could have just stayed on that bridge and let everything fall apart, but you didn't." Andrew nodded, his expression serious. "You're right. And that's because of you, Jamal. You reminded me that even when things feel impossible, there's always a way forward. Jamal fiddled with his straw, his brow furrowed in thought. Do you think I could do something like this one day? You know, run a company? Andrew smiled. Absolutely. You're smart, brave, and determined. Those are the most important qualities you need. The rest is just learning and hard work. Jamal's face lit up. I want to build something someday. Maybe not a company, but something big, something that helps people. You already started, Andrew said. You helped me, and because of that, you've helped all the people who work here and the clients we serve. That's no small thing. Jamal's grin grew wider. I guess you're right. When Andrew dropped Jamal off at home later that afternoon, Carla was waiting on the porch. She watched as Jamal bounded out of the car, practically glowing with excitement. Did you have fun? She asked as he ran up the steps. Yeah, Ma. It was amazing, Jamal exclaimed. I saw the office and met his team, and they're doing all this cool stuff with computers. Carla raised an eyebrow at Andrew as he approached. You're making quite the impression on him. He's making an impression on me, Andrew replied sincerely. You've raised a remarkable young man, Ms. Anderson. Carla smiled, the tension in her shoulders easing. Thank you, and thank you for giving him this experience. He'll be talking about it for weeks. Andrew nodded. It's the least I can do. Your son saved my life, literally and figuratively. As Andrew drove away, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. Jamal's visit had reminded him of how far he had come and how much further he still wanted to go, not just for himself, but for the people who believed in him. For Andrew, this wasn't just about rebuilding a company anymore. It was about paying forward the kindness and courage of a boy who had refused to give up on him, and he intended to do just that. Spring gave way to summer, and both Andrew's and Jamal's lives were in full swing. At Vanguard Systems, Andrew's team was thriving. New clients were signing up, revenue was climbing, and for the first time in years, the company was profitable again. The energy in the office was electric. Every milestone they hit reminded Andrew that the fight to save his company had been worth it. But with success came new challenges. One afternoon, Andrew sat in his office reviewing the company's quarterly projections. The numbers looked promising, but the pressure to sustain their growth was mounting. He rubbed his temples as his assistant, Rachel, knocked on the door. Got a minute? She asked, stepping inside with a stack of papers. Sure, Andrew said, leaning back in his chair. What's up? Rachel placed the documents on his desk. It's about the expansion plans. If we want to scale up, we'll need to hire at least 10 more engineers. But that means stretching the budget, and there's a risk we might not see immediate returns. Andrew frowned, studying the papers. We can't afford to grow too fast, but if we don't expand, we risk falling behind. It's a tough call. Rachel nodded. That's the reality of bouncing back. Every step forward comes with its own set of risks. Andrew sighed, running a hand through his hair. Let me think about it. We'll discuss it in the next strategy meeting. Rachel gave him a reassuring smile. Take your time. You've made good decisions so far. Trust yourself. After she left, Andrew stared out the window, his mind racing. The stakes felt higher than ever. But in moments of doubt, he always returned to the lesson Jamal had taught him on that bridge. Keep fighting. While Andrew wrestled with business decisions, Jamal faced challenges of his own. Summer break had arrived, and while most kids in his neighborhood spent their days playing basketball or riding bikes, Jamal was determined to do something different. He had started tinkering with old electronics he found at thrift stores, inspired by what he'd seen at Andrew's office. With the help of YouTube tutorials and a few library books, Jamal began teaching himself basic programming and circuitry. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of moments when he felt like giving up, but he kept pushing. One evening, Carla walked into the living room to find Jamal hunched over the kitchen table, a jumble of wires and circuit boards spread out in front of him. "What on earth are you doing, baby?" she asked, eyeing the mess with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Building a robot," Jamal said without looking up. "Well, sort of. It's just a little thing that moves when you clap. I'm trying to get the motor to work." Carla crossed her arms, a skeptical smile on her face. "And where did you learn how to do all this?" "Online," Jamal replied, grinning. "I want to build something big one day, Ma. Something cool, like what Mr. Andrew does." Carla's expression softened. "That's a good dream, Jamal. Just don't forget that big dreams take time and patience." "I know," Jamal said, "but I've got to start somewhere." One day, as Andrew was leaving the office, his phone buzzed. It was Jamal. "Hey, Mr. Andrew!" Jamal's voice was filled with excitement. "Guess what?" "What's up?" Andrew asked, smiling at the boy's enthusiasm. "I built something. It's not much, but it works. Want to see?" "Of course," Andrew said. "Send me a video." A few minutes later, Andrew received a short clip of a small makeshift robot skittering across a table, powered by clapping hands. It was crude, but functional, and Andrew couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. "That's incredible, Jamal," Andrew texted back. "You're a natural. Keep it up." As the summer wore on, Jamal continued to work on his projects, and Andrew faced increasingly tough decisions about the company's future. But through it all, their bond remained strong. They called or texted regularly, and Andrew made a point of checking in on Jamal's progress. One weekend, Andrew invited Jamal to another visit at Vanguard, this time for a special occasion. The company was celebrating its most successful quarter yet, and Andrew wanted Jamal to see what he had helped make possible. When Jamal arrived, the office was buzzing with excitement. Balloons and banners hung from the ceiling, and tables were laden with food and drinks. Employees mingled, laughing and toasting to their achievements. Andrew greeted Jamal at the door. "You made it," he said, shaking the boy's hand. "Wouldn't miss it," Jamal replied, grinning. "What's the celebration for?" "You'll see," Andrew said, leading him to the center of the room. Once everyone had gathered, Andrew stepped onto a small stage. "Can I have your attention?" he called out, and the chatter died down. "Today we're celebrating a major milestone. Not only has Vanguard Systems recovered, but we've exceeded every goal we set for ourselves this quarter, and it's all thanks to this incredible team." Cheers erupted, and Andrew paused, letting the applause die down. "But there's someone else I want to recognize," he continued. "Someone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." He looked directly at Jamal, who froze, wide-eyed. "This young man reminded me why I started this company in the first place. His courage, kindness, and belief in second chances gave me the strength to keep going. Jamal, this one's for you." The room burst into applause as Andrew motioned for Jamal to join him on stage. Blushing furiously, Jamal stepped forward, overwhelmed by the attention. "Say a few words," Andrew whispered. Jamal hesitated, then took the microphone. Thanks everyone," he said, his voice shaking. "I didn't really do much, I just didn't want Mr. Andrew to give up. And I guess it worked." The crowd laughed and cheered, and Jamal grinned, his confidence growing. "But for real, this is awesome. You guys are awesome, and I'm glad I could be a small part of it." As the applause swelled again, Andrew clapped Jamal on the back. "You're not a small part, Jamal. You're a big part, and this is just the beginning." For both of them, it truly was. As summer turned to fall, life continued to evolve for both Andrew and Jamal. Vanguard Systems had officially established itself as a rising star in the cybersecurity industry, with clients ranging from small businesses to mid-sized corporations. For Andrew, the pressure of running a successful business was still ever present, but it no longer felt like an unbearable weight. He had a capable team, a clear vision, and most importantly, a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, as Andrew reviewed a proposal for a new contract, he came across an old photo buried in a desk drawer. It was from his company's early days, a grainy picture of him and his first small team huddled around a whiteboard in a cramped office. The faces were younger, and the hope in their eyes was unmistakable. It reminded him of the struggles they had endured to get to this point, and the people who had helped along the way. That's when the idea struck him. He had worked so hard to rebuild his company, but he hadn't yet taken the opportunity to pay it forward. It's time, he thought. It's time to give back. The next day, Andrew called Rachel and Marco into his office. "I've been thinking," Andrew began, "about how far we've come and how much help we've had along the way. We wouldn't be here without the people who believed in us, even when things were at their worst. It's time for us to do the same for others." Marco leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "A mentorship program," Andrew said. "Something that helps young people, especially those from underserved communities, learn about technology and entrepreneurship. We can teach them skills, give them resources, and show them that they can achieve great things." Rachel's eyes lit up. "That's a fantastic idea. It's a great way to use our success to make a difference." Marco nodded. "I'm in. Let's do it." A few weeks later, Andrew stood in a local community center, watching as the first session of the Vanguard Mentorship Initiative began. 15 teenagers, some shy and others brimming with curiosity, sat around tables covered with laptops and electronic kits. Jamal, of course, was among them, his face lighting up as he tinkered with a small robot he had designed. Andrew addressed the group. "I know what it's like to feel like the odds are stacked against you. But I also know that with the right mindset and the right support, you can overcome anything. This program isn't just about learning tech. It's about learning to believe in yourselves. You're the next generation of innovators, and we're here to help you succeed." The kids cheered, their enthusiasm infectious. Jamal thrived in the program. While other participants were just beginning to explore the world of technology, Jamal had already gained a head start thanks to his summer experiments. He quickly became a leader among his peers, offering advice and encouragement whenever someone struggled with a task. One afternoon, as Andrew walked through the room, he stopped at Jamal's table. "How's it going?" he asked. "Pretty good," Jamal said, showing Andrew a small circuit board. "I'm working on this idea for a motion sensor light. It's not done yet, but I think it'll work." Andrew grinned. "That's impressive. You know, you've got a real knack for this. Ever think about turning it into a career?" Jamal shrugged, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe. I mean, I'd love to build stuff that helps people like you do. But sometimes I wonder if someone like me can actually make it big." Andrew crouched beside him, his tone serious. "Jamal, don't ever doubt yourself. You've got more talent and determination than most adults I know. You can make it as big as you want. You just have to keep pushing." Jamal nodded, his confidence bolstered. "Thanks, Mr. Andrew. I won't let you down." As the mentorship program gained momentum, it began to attract attention from the local community. Parents, teachers, and even city officials praised Andrew for his efforts to invest in the next generation. It wasn't long before local media picked up the story, further boosting Vanguard Systems' reputation. One evening, Carla sat with Jamal as they watched a news segment about the program. The camera panned across the community center, showing kids hard at work and Andrew speaking passionately about the importance of opportunity and resilience. "That's your Mr. Andrew," Carla said with a smile. "You sure know how to pick your role models." Jamal grinned. "He's the real deal, Ma. One day, I'm going to do something like that. Help people. Make a difference." Carla placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know you will, baby. You've got it in you." For Andrew, the mentorship program was more than just a way to give back. It was a reminder of why he had fought so hard to rebuild his company. Watching the kids in the program reminded him of Jamal on that bridge, full of potential, but needing someone to believe in them. One evening, as the program wrapped up for the day, Andrew pulled Jamal aside. "You've been doing amazing in this program," Andrew said, "but I want to challenge you to think bigger. What's your dream, Jamal? If you could do anything, what would it be?" Jamal hesitated, then said, "I want to build something that makes life better for people. Maybe it's robots, or technology, or something else. I just want to make a difference." Andrew nodded, his expression serious. "That's a great dream, and I believe you can make it happen. But dreams take work, and I'm going to help you every step of the way." Jamal's eyes widened. "You mean it?" "Absolutely," Andrew said. "You gave me a second chance, Jamal. It's only fair I do the same for you." As they left the community center that evening, Andrew couldn't help but feel that his journey was coming full circle. He had gone from being saved on a bridge to saving a company, and now he was helping others find their own paths to success. For Jamal, the mentorship program was just the beginning. With Andrew's guidance and his own determination, he was ready to chase his dreams and one day create a legacy of his own. 15 years had passed since the night on the Jefferson Bridge. What began as a desperate cry for help had transformed into a story of resilience, redemption, and an unbreakable bond. Now, Andrew Cole stood at the edge of a different bridge, not one of despair, but one of gratitude and purpose. And the years had been kind to Andrew. Vanguard Systems wasn't just a leader in cybersecurity. It had become a household name, a beacon for innovation and integrity in the tech world. Andrew himself was no longer just an entrepreneur. He was a philanthropist, mentor, and advocate for underserved communities. His name graced Forbes covers and keynote stages, but through all the accolades, he never forgot the boy who had pulled him back from the brink. That boy, Jamal Anderson, was no longer a boy either. At 28, Jamal had grown into a confident, accomplished man. After excelling in school and earning a degree in robotics engineering, he launched his own company, Bright Path Innovations, specializing in affordable, life-enhancing technologies. His first product, a low-cost motion sensor lighting system for homes in energy-poor areas, had garnered international acclaim. Their paths had remained intertwined over the years, with Andrew serving as both mentor and friend to Jamal. But today was different. Today, Andrew intended to fulfill a promise he had made long ago. Jamal stepped out of the car and gazed at the sleek modern building in front of him. The sprawling structure was nestled in the heart of Detroit, its glass exterior reflecting the vibrant city skyline. Above the entrance, large metallic letters spelled out, "The Anderson Cole Center for Innovation and Community Development." Jamal stared in disbelief. "What is this?" he asked, turning to Andrew, who stood beside him. Andrew smiled, his eyes glinting with pride. "This is for you, Jamal, for everything you've done and everything you will do." Jamal's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Andrew placed a hand on his shoulder, guiding him toward the building. "This center is a place where dreams like yours can grow," Andrew explained as they walked through the entrance. Inside, the state-of-the-art facility buzzed with activity. Labs filled with young engineers experimenting with cutting-edge technology, classrooms where instructors taught coding and entrepreneurship, and open workspaces where ideas flowed freely. "It's not just a tech hub," Andrew continued. "It's a community resource, a place where kids who don't have much can come to learn, create, and find mentors, just like you found me, and I found you." Jamal shook his head, overwhelmed. "Andrew, I don't know what to say. This is incredible." "You don't have to say anything," Andrew said. Just promise me you'll use this to keep making a difference, to keep inspiring people the way you inspired me." Jamal nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise." Later that day, Andrew and Jamal sat in the center's main conference room, a bright space filled with floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek furniture. They watched as young people from all walks of life filtered in, wide-eyed and eager to learn. "It's amazing, isn't it?" Andrew said, "to think about all the potential in this room, all the lives that could be changed." Jamal nodded, a quiet smile on his face. "It reminds me of that first day at Vanguard's mentorship program. I felt like anything was possible." "That's the goal," Andrew said, "to give people hope, to give them a chance." They sat in companionable silence for a moment before Andrew spoke again. "You know, Jamal, there's one more thing I want to say." Jamal turned to him, curious. "Thank you," Andrew said simply. "You saved my life that night on the bridge. And because of you, I've been able to save so many others. None of this would have been possible without you." Jamal smiled, his eyes glistening. "You've thanked me 1,000 times, Andrew. But you know what? I think we both saved each other." As the day turned to evening, Andrew and Jamal stood outside the center, watching as the city lights flickered to life. The hum of traffic and the chatter of people filled the air, a reminder of the vibrant, ever-moving world they were both a part of. 15 years ago, I couldn't see past the edge of that bridge," Andrew said quietly. "But now I see everything." Jamal nodded. "And it's just the beginning, for both of us." Andrew smiled, his heart full. Together, they had come full circle, not just as individuals, but as proof that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, creating waves of change. As they parted ways that night, Andrew knew one thing for certain. The future was bright, not just for him and Jamal, but for every life they would touch through their work, their mentorship, and their unwavering belief in second chances. And it all started with a boy, a man, and a bridge.